All right. So this is the video of the concession. I mean, I'm not going to just say, "Oh, no way, man, that sucks." No way. I'm not going to be like a dog with his tail behind his legs. I'm going to make it, a real, concession of defeat, and it's very, very clear that they have used deceptive, trickery. First of all, against the woman. Okay, first is the deception against the woman, and then it is the illogical dismissal, and then of course, the rubber stamping. All right, so that is where we are today. All right, so let's get into it. So, to dismiss justice is not merely to deny a claim, it is to sever the tether that binds law to truth. And the rejection of this appeal is not an act of impartial reasoning, nor demonstration of the system's inability to consider the matter. It is a case study in how institutions entrusted with upholding justice and professional accountability contort logic to justify inaction. The rejection is not based on the lack of merit in the complaint, nor the supposed ineligibility of the claimant, but on procedural obstacles so perverse that one must question whether they were crafted by madmen. Right? This kind of act and everything, it's designed so that nobody can complain, and doctors are free to do whatever they want, including literally killing a whole bunch of babies. Right? It's ridiculous. Right? This is perverse. Like, this is the epitome of perverseness. Right? It is clear that the loss in question, the loss of an embryonic human life, a baby, a boy, baby girl, was acknowledged in its essence. Though dismissed in its consequence, it was acknowledged that no one, not even this committee, dared to argue against the fundamental truth that life begins at fertilization. The embryo whose fate is at issue was infinitely valuable, a being of irreplaceable potential, a human life with all the dignity afforded to him by the very laws of nature and science, and yet the system which postures as the arbiter of medical ethics and professional responsibility has made it equally clear that it is structured not to uphold professional standards, but to shield those who violate them. All right, continue. All right, so the deliberate evasion of accountability. So this case was not overturned. Sorry, dismissed. Not overturned. No, for sure. The dismissal was not overturned. Sorry about that. The This case was not dismissed due to a lack of evidence. No, the evidence is overwhelming, both scientifically and ethically. It was dismissed due to the cunning exploitation of bureaucratic barriers, which serve no higher function than to allow professionals to evade scrutiny. The very essence of informed consent, full disclosure of material medical risks and mechanisms was ignored. Instead of addressing whether a physician misled a patient about the function of hormonal birth control, the decision makers retreated into the procedural refuge of patient confidentiality. And the independent review committee, which exists to review and correct the registrar's decision, has instead become its echo chamber. The logic employs as follows. Okay, so the claimant was never asked for the woman's name or additional details, yet the committee used this absence to justify inactions. No records were reviewed, no physician was questioned, and because no inquiry occurred, they declared there was nothing to investigate. With or without a name, Dr. Dell's failure as a medical practitioner would remain. The duty to provide accurate information is not erased by procedural loopholes. The committee crafted a perpetuating excuse, avoiding inquiry, then using that very avoidance to dismiss accountability. All right, I don't know if you follow that, but it's a loophole that goes around and around and around. So basically, let me dumb it down for you. All right, so I'm the dad, right? There was a tangible loss, right? A material loss, right? My child died, right? I cannot, complain, right? According to them, because well, I'm not the complainant. So they would have needed to know who the sorry, I'm not the complainant. I'm the dad. I'm not the mother, right? So they would have needed to know who the mother was at that time, and she would have needed her consent. But because of Dr. Dow's failure, right, that she successfully deceived the woman into believing that this was a harmless, prevention, which it was not. It just killed the baby, right? That's what birth controls do. They do not prevent they do not prevent the ovulation and fertilization, the conception, right? The conception is viable. It's a viable pregnancy, so it's a baby boy. So because I'm the dad, basically, and I said, there's no just reason to deny the claim based on this kind of procedural loophole, and but they used a procedural loophole, and now because of this, procedural loophole, they can, they're and they even know all the details, but they cannot investigate because of this type of procedural loophole that they've created. Right? They created this procedural loophole. I didn't make it. I came in with a valid claim. It is a material loss, but the procedural loophole that was created by them allows them the very uh, right, if you want to call it a right, to inaction, right? The right to not investigate. Yeah. So this sequence meaning, sorry, the sequence of reasoning is not just flawed, it's a blueprint for exonerating professional misconduct. It means that any physicians, so long as they do not face a direct complaint from their own patient, may mislead, deceive, and violate ethical standards without consequence. It is a logical absurdity to suggest that ethical breaches only matter when the primary recipient of care is the complainant. Were this the standard in other areas of medicine or law, institutions would crumble under the weight of injustice. So let's say, for example, the patient died. Oh, I'm sorry, the patient didn't consent to their medical records because they're dead. So the doctor did nothing wrong. It's just an absolute travesty of logic and reasoning. It's like some sort of and they know that there's no way that they cannot understand that. It certainly is not logical. I mean, there's no it's lengthy. Maybe that's the only way. People don't give it the time of day to go through their logical roller coaster, illogical roller coaster, right? There's no reason here. That this is a bunch of foolish nonsense here. So let's say, for example, that the patient would die, all right, unjustly, and then the family member of the patient says, well, you gave him this thing, and you didn't tell him that the drug were to kill that the person, and the patient would be dead, so he cannot provide his consent. So then the doctor did nothing wrong because they can't investigate them. So it's about it's not just like the thing, it is the thing. The patient is not the woman, right? Who's the patient anyway? This isn't even a sickness. Natural fertility is not even an illness. There's no therapy. There's no illness. There's no need for a medical correction here, right? Because there's a third party here. That's the thing. I mean, this logic is just absolute. And there's no need to explain every single detail of the illogical to debunk or whatever, because they know that this is just wrong, and the reason that they're doing this is because they cannot investigate. Because if they were to investigate, it would just send the whole medical establishment crumbling down, I should say, into where it belongs, right? Right, into reform, right? We have to reform the system, right? So, but no, we don't want to reform the system because we get cushy jobs and all this stuff. Whatever. I mean, that's the way you want to run your medical establishment. It's shameful. Or the betrayal of a king's council. This guy is a KC. That means King's Counsel. At the end of his name, he's got KC, right? So that's for lawyers and everything that are members of the King's Council, which is what? What is it, anyways, right? There was a time when a King's Counsel was a title of prestige, a mark of distinction, and of distinction in legal reasoning and ethical fortitude. It was meant to indicate that not just expertise, but the highest level of integrity within the profession. And yet this decision rendered under the guidance of a King's Counsel is an affront to the very principles that such a designation is meant to uphold. A King's Council is expected to interpret and apply the law in a manner that promotes justice, not in a way that subverts it through technicalities. This decision, by hiding behind procedural barriers, does not merely err in logic, it actively undermines public trust in the administration of law, administration of medicine, right? The medical establishment itself. It tells the world that ethics are conditional, and that the very professionals entrusted with human lives may mislead without consequence, and the pursuit of truth can be thwarted by the most trivial bureaucratic mechanisms, right? Yeah, right. If this were simply a matter of a flawed decision, it would be regrettable, but not catastrophic. However, it is far worse. This decision reflects a systematic failure, one that turns the legal and medical professions into entities that exist to protect themselves rather than the people they serve. The precedent set here does not merely affect this case, it affects every future case where a physician's actions are questioned. It signals to every patient that their right to informed consent is conditional, not on truth, and not on medical ethics, but on whether the system finds it convenient to acknowledge their grievance. While this committee believes that it was reviewing a complaint against a single physician, in reality it was itself on trial. And it has failed. It has demonstrated that the system, rather than standing for justice, is built to obstruct it. It has failed not merely in its refusal to investigate, but in its refusal to think, to apply logic, reasoning, and ethical principles in the pursuit of what is right. The loss suffered in this case is profound, and not merely in a legal sense. It is the loss of confidence in a profession that claims to hold itself to high standards. It is the loss of accountability in a system that has demonstrated it will not act unless forced to do so. And most tragically, it is the laws of human life, the weight of which this committee has chosen to dismiss as unworthy of review. To be clear, this is not a matter of the committee having reviewed the facts and finding no wrongdoing. No, it has deliberately avoided reviewing the facts, choosing instead to argue that procedural barriers outweigh substantive justice. That is not a demonstration of fairness or objectivity. It is the abdication of duty. And so the concession of defeat. So in the current legal and medical landscape, the outcome of this appeal was perhaps inevitable. Inevitable, not because of lack of merit, nor because the claim was ill-founded, but because the very structures that are supposed to ensure justice have instead been crafted to prevent it. The King's Council, who presided over this matter, has not delivered a legal verdict so much as he has confirmed the system's moral and intellectual bankruptcy. There will be no justice in this forum, not because it is unobtainable, but because the rules are designed to make it so. But let this be a record of the failure, an unflinching documentation of the flaws, the evasions, and the deliberate barriers to accountability that have been deployed to shield professional misconduct. History is replete with legal and medical failures that in their time were considered acceptable, even final. But time has a way of revealing the truth. One day this failure will be acknowledged for what it is, a betrayal of logic, a perversion of justice, and a decision that served not the people but the protection of an unaccountable profession. And when that day comes, those responsible will not be remembered as defenders of the law, medicine, but as the enablers of their lunacy. Thank you very much for tuning in. That is The Concession. I'll see you in the next video.